What's going on, Praise Podcast family? It is another episode of the Praise Podcast. My name is Eric Lade. I get to host the Praise Podcast, and it is always a blast. And of course, you know, if I'm here, that means the Brooke Paninsky is in the house. The one, the only, the co-host above any other co-host, Brooke Paninsky. So we are here. We are excited. We have got a what we anticipate to be just an unreal episode for you. We've got a guest in the house with us today, which we will introduce to you in just a moment. But we've got a What's Your Story episode coming your way today, and we always love those because, one, Brooke and I have to talk a lot less, and two, we get to hang out with one of our incredible volunteers and people that just serve in our ministry at the church that we serve at Central. They put in so much time and effort, and we get the opportunity to hear from them, and just for you all to hear from them and hear how they got to where they are now. And so we are looking forward to that. But of course, before we get to that, Brooke, we've got to tell them all the good stuff, all their homework. And you know what your homework is. Your homework is to leave a rating and review. That's step one. That just helps. It just helps when you leave a rating and review. Step two is, why don't you share this podcast with somebody? That would be a great way. Maybe on your social media, maybe via text, maybe, I don't know. Do people still do email chains, Brooke? Is that still a thing?
That was the conversation before. Do we still tweet and do we still email?
I don't think tweeting
chain
is,
emails.
I will say Twitter has had a slight comeback for me. But anyway,
go.
so just however you do it, go knock on your neighbor's door and just show them your phone and be like, listen to this.
Old school.
Let them borrow. Yeah, old school. A cassette tape.
Face-to-face conversation.
Burn a CD. Whatever you've got to do. Why don't you just share this podcast today? That would be just super helpful. Not because anything Brooke and I, but we just want the message of what we talk about on here to be heard by people. And we think that the message and what we talk about is something that may encourage and may help and may just get somebody closer to God. And so if you know somebody that could be encouraged or could benefit from the conversations we have on this podcast, again, it would be awesome if you share. And of course, we always love hearing from you all. You can send us an email at eric@centralnow.com or brooke@centralnow.com. We love to hear from you all. If you ever have any questions or comments, join in. We got a lot of people joining in on the pickle conversation. There was many. People were. I got a recipe on
awesome.
how to pickle some pickles, which I will be doing now that it feels like it's actually fall weather.
Yeah,
I feel
like the perfect time to pickle.
It feels like the perfect time to do some pickling. But
That's
don't
awesome.
worry, don't mute this episode. We are done talking about pickling for now. But if you have no idea what I'm talking about, pause this episode, go back to listen to our last two, and you'll be in on what we're talking about. So, Brooke,
what's up?
We kind of pretended that we had been back on the last, but we actually now are back. So give us a quick rundown. You went to California.
Yeah.
And it was a great trip, I assume.
What
did you do in California?
So California was a summit, an in-person summit for a cohort that myself and Maria are both in, and it's called Ecclesia, and it's a branch off of Propel Women Ministry. That's kind of one of Christine Cain's many plethoras of ministries, right? And so it's essentially just focused, though, on like women in ministry. And this was a cohort that's about 6 months of a process or like term or whatever. And we finally got to meet like our whole group and small group. Like, so there's like a large group, like within our whole entire team. And it was like maybe 70 people, I guess, a part of it. And then we have a smaller cohort. And there might be 20, not even, maybe like 12 to 15 of us in the smaller one. But yeah, so we got to go to Irvine, California at Christine Cain's home church and Mariners Church. And we got to meet all these people face to face for the first time, which is so much sweeter than Zoom, And we just had worship and breakouts and just different things like that. And it was just really cool to meet people and I don't know, like just to hear what God is doing through people you don't know and that are located across the country. And it's like somewhat the same. You're like, oh, the world is so small and God is so intentional. And so the overall trip was incredible. We were gone for about a week and it was just a glorious time. So Yeah, I mean, I was seriously, Christine Kane was like spitting in my face.
I know.
She gave me a hug. We almost wore the same shoes.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, I'll never forget it.
I
Fangirling, truly.
my biggest takeaway from your trip was that one of the pictures that you showed me was that you finally found somebody that you are taller than. And that is Christine Kane. Like you are taller than Christine Kane.
It was awesome.
Which was
my hat gave me a few inches.
Congratulations. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, she's cool.
And you got to live like the Southern California life, like
which was also
s'mores
awesome.
On the beach and
like bagels,
walking through
like not just any
mountains.
kind of. There's a California kind of bagel. People don't get it. I mean, it's a real thing. And I mean, avocado on it was just. I feel like I always talk about food on this podcast, but that's just my nature.
Food a lot. It's partly a food podcast.
Sure. And so, I mean, there are just so many little things. And my favorite area was Corona del Mar. Like that's where we went and for both our beach experiences, I guess. And I mean, the area was awesome. We went to Fashion Island for a little bit and shopping was really great. Like there was just so many different things to do. And everyone there was so nice.
Really?
I mean, you wouldn't think it, I guess, like us, like
small-minded
Midwesterns.
70 degrees and sunny. How could you not be happy?
And I learned, the Lord kind of clarified a stereotype that I guess maybe I had unknowingly. I just really thought I'd meet more mean people, and I didn't. Like everyone was so nice. From the TJ Maxx worker or the lady from Marshall's when I'm like, shopping, and then to the guy who made my bagel and my coffee. Like also there's a Starbucks like every 2 blocks. It's amazing. Yeah. And every 2 blocks where there's a Starbucks and there's a barista, they're nice. They really are. But then the other part of it that was really fun was like just how much there was to do and how different it was. It was just really cool. And the weather, like you talked about the weather, I did learn another big takeaway was, and no offense to my California now friends, but they're kind of wimps when it comes to humidity. We were under what do they call it? Like a heat index kind of whatever. Yeah. What do they call that? Heat advisory. Yeah. And it was like, the real feel or whatever. And Maria and I are walking around like, this is the most beautiful day. Wow. And like Californians are like, we're under a heat advisory, like I was like, you would not know what to do in Mount Vernon, Illinois. No. But no, it was an awesome time. And what's funny, and I will wrap myself out, when you go back and you kind of listen to the episode where you pretended as if I like was back, I laughed because I felt so uncomfortable. Like I didn't know you were going to do that. And I was like,
I
it
was put myself into a hole.
Because I knew it would be.
Put myself into a hole on that one. But here we are. We have actually gone on the
We
trip.
really have both gone and returned from trips.
We have actually returned. So
but anyways, it was amazing.
Good.
It was
Great.
awesome.
I'm glad you had a good trip.
Yeah, super cool. And I also got a signed book of, what is it, The Resilient Hope, her new devotional. She signed it to me.
Wow.
I mean, I'll just hold on
Christine,
to that.
Basically.
Well, everyone calls her Chris, so her real friends call her Chris.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So,
Chris Kane.
Anyways, no, it was super fun. It was awesome to be part of something like that.
Cool.
So,
we're glad you got to go.
Glad
it was a good trip.
Should I say thanks for letting me go?
No, I don't have that power.
You said we don't talk about it yet.
We don't have that power. All right, well, shall we tell them who is hanging out with us today?
I think it's time.
So you have a real treat. Will by far be the best voice that we've had on this podcast to date. But we have none other than he's a radio host, he's a DJ, he's a drummer, he's a vocalist. He hangs out with kids of all ages willingly, and they like him.
Yes.
I mean, and just the list of things that he can do and does. He's got amazing wife who is actually hanging out on another podcast that we've got this week, I believe on Jared's podcast, which is the Central Weekly. I just looked at the wall to make sure I said the name right, but so you can take that. But all that to say, let's give a praise podcast welcome to the Jimmy Bass.
Woo! Hello, what's going on?
Hey, Jimmy.
Do I need to use my radio voice from like 90.9
to right now? Yeah,
or just my normal voice? So.
Yeah, we were talking before. It was like it's going to be hard not to use. I was like, I don't know how you. I would always use the radio voice, like whether if I was ordering like McDonald's or whatever.
I would like a double cheeseburger.
Well, what's funny, you mentioned that a couple of months ago, we finished a weekend service. I can't remember if I was singing or if I was playing drums. Maybe I was singing. And Hope, Moffat was on team with this, and you said, "Hey, Jimmy, why don't you pray us out to end the weekend?" So I prayed, and she's like, "You totally prayed that in your radio voice." And I'm like, I think I did.
I didn't even realize. Oh, that's awesome.
I think when I have to project my voice, I think I do kind of go back into my radio voice.
There's nothing wrong with that. No. There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, so Jimmy is here with us today. Like I mentioned, Jimmy is what we would consider here at Central, which is the church that Brooke and I serve at. We would consider Jimmy like super volunteer. Like he is in all areas. There's few areas in our ministries that Jimmy is not involved in, and him and his wife have been just key people in the ministry of Central for a long. How long have you been?
I was going to say, and
Central?
for a long time. Yeah.
We have been here for 18 years.
18 years. I knew it was growing close to 20. So
yeah, 20. It's 20 and 24.
Wow,
and that's awesome. When our 20-year anniversary is as well.
Yeah.
We got married in June of 2004, and we joined the church in August of 2004.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah,
and so I had visited a few times before when she was living here, and her story is on Jared's podcast, but we met, and in 2003, she was already living here and visiting Central when she wasn't going back home to her mom's. And I came up here one time with her, met when they were still meeting in the old building, which is now the Student Worship Center. And I thought, this is a pretty cool church. I kind of like this. And visited, and then we visited again right after they moved into the new worship center in March of that year, of 2004. And then we got married, and then we joined the church. So
it's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's great.
So Jimmy has been, like I said, a staple of specifically for us in our creative arts ministry for a long time. So we're excited for you to hear from him today, and we get to kind of hear his story and his background, which I know that you will be blessed and encouraged by. But before we get to that, we got to do a song spotlight. And so, Jimmy, you know what's coming here, but basically, Song Spotlight is just a song that we've had on repeat, or we've been playing a lot recently, which, as we were discussing, since Jimmy is like a radio host and, he just likes music and a DJ, like it would probably be hard to narrow this down. But that being said, Brooke, why don't you kick us off? What's your song this week?
Well, I found this song called Nothing He Can't Do by Community Music. I've never heard of Community Music before. I've never heard this song before. It was just random I think maybe I was just like shuffling through like some random kind of playlist or whatever that's not even, songs on my library. It came on and I was like, oh my goodness, like this is so good.
We're becoming community people, because was Ruins from last week. From mine.
Really?
That was community music.
I guess that's true. I guess I didn't put two and two together. Yeah, no. So the, and honestly, I just had to look at who it was by for today. I only knew the title of it, but Nothing He Can't Do. Yeah, it's really good. And I think too, like there's a part of it that says, hold on, let me pull up the lyrics. It was something like, hold on, wait, because I don't want to mess it up. Yes, it says, I'll bless the name of the Lord before the breakthrough, nothing he can't do. And I think that's just super cool too, for not only like the season I'm in, but I think it's the season a lot of people are in, of really just having that faith and testing that faith out, and just like blessing him and trusting him and still loving him and serving him, being obedient towards him before you get what you're asking for in hard seasons. So like before the breakthrough, and honestly, even if the breakthrough comes in a way you didn't expect or what you maybe prefer, like I think that's just like a message for people today. I think a lot of people can relate to that. And and I mean, I sure could. So I thought, I'm going to add this to my playlist is called The Sevens. And it's like a picture of me, you, and Peyton from when we led worship in the Student Worship Center like almost 2 years ago. Wow. But it's called Sevens. But yeah, and I was like, that needs to go on there. So it is. I've listened to it a lot this week. Good. So check it out.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Jimmy, how about you?
Okay.
What's your
I didn't
your
know
song?
if you were going to go or if it was going to be me.
No, I'll go last.
Tag,
I will bring up the rear.
So a little side note, when you mentioned that, I didn't know that was the song, who did the song that we did last week. Mm-hmm. I always do that whenever I'm looking at the Planning Center app. I'll go and I'm like, okay, these are the songs we're doing. It's like, I'm not familiar with the song. And I'll click all right, I want to look at the PDF and see who wrote the song and see where it's from, because it's like, because if I like the song and it's from a artist that I'm not familiar with, I like to go and listen to more stuff from them.
Yeah,
Because
that's
I mean,
awesome.
I'm a music guy. I love good praise. I love simple praise and worship music because I think that's what God wants from us is simplicity. But that could be a whole nother podcast. A month or so ago, I was playing drums in Fusion with our new resident Noah Hampson.
Yeah.
And we played a song that I hadn't forgotten about, but it's been so long since I've heard it. It's an old Vineyard song called Holy and Anointed One. And I'm like, oh, I'd forgotten about this song. It's been so long. And so for a spell there, I was like getting back into the old Vineyard music from, well, when you were born, 1990, 91, 92. But then it also had me reconnect with an art. I don't want to call him an artist. He's a worship pastor now at a church in Safety Harbor, Florida. And he actually was a kid when I was in my mid-20s at my church in Memphis. And his dad was the pastor. They moved to Florida, and he's been at this church now for, well, just as long as I've been away from Memphis. So that would be since 1998, 99. But it's Safety Harbor is the name of, or is the town. Harborside Christian Church is the name of the church. And I reconnected with them because Ethan is the worship pastor there. He used to sit in my lap at my church in Memphis, and we would play drums. He would play drums with me. And he's mentioned that before, but now he leads worship at the church that his dad is the senior pastor in, and they've got some really, really good music. I was like... And I mean, they did an album 2-3 years ago, and there was a song that I used to listen to all the time called Fullness. But they've got a new album getting ready to come out, a live praise and worship album, like what we did with Present and Pleased, or Pleased and Present. I forget the name.
Present
of
and
it.
Pleased, you had it. You had it. Either way, you you shake it out.
But there's so many of the songs that are on this album that's getting ready to come out. But one that really has been sticking out to me, and it reminds me of the Praise Podcast, because you always mention, may we always be people that always bring the praise. And some of the lyrics in this song talk about, the song's called Temple. And it's said, let this body be your holy temple. Let this temple praise you. It's so good. And may we always have the name of Jesus on our lips and whatnot. It's really good stuff. And I know you mentioned, I specifically heard it on the last podcast about how you have people always bringing songs to you, and it's like, I don't want to be that guy.
But
or
listen
that
to this
person.
song.
And the reason so, I mean, it's like, to me, it goes back to a trust thing. It's like, I trust who my worship pastor is to know and find all these great songs that not only I can connect with, but the congregation can connect with. And that's why I don't really tend to do that. But I'm going to send you some of these links.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's Harborside
cool.
music.
Yeah.
And probably Temple is the one that I've had the most on repeat. So
Now, okay, so the guy that you mentioned there, did he was he playing with somebody? 'Cause we met him, or he was doing. Was he playing in a band, possibly, with somebody pretty well known?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I know before he became the worship pastor at Harborside.
Because somebody had sent. I feel like one time somebody had sent a picture of somebody or it was like band. Don't you know somebody from Band Camino?
Yes.
Is that it?
Well, yeah. It's the band Camino, and the former children's director at my church in Memphis. She's now in Fayetteville, Arkansas. She ended up being a teacher. She was a teacher, became our children's director, and then they left and went to Fayetteville, Arkansas. Her oldest son is the drummer for Band Camino.
Okay.
And he actually sat
I
in
was
my
gonna say,
lap
well,
one
that's-
time playing drums.
Okay, well that's where I was
So you
like, is
weren't
this
too
the
far
song? I was
off.
like, I know that I've heard this connection before, but
He's
it's a different person.
He's just poured into the youth from the get-go. He's just so
I do.
good at
I love
kids.
kids. I love
You
kids.
do.
I mean,
Well, and even that's kind of funny, and we can talk about that a little bit later, but I seriously, when I met you was my Fusion days, and you were just as involved with that ministry and CA like as you are even now. So it's just been really cool. But I think that's a huge testament to your heart.
Well, cool. Yeah, send me that song.
That's so
I'd
cool.
like to listen to
Okay.
it. Yeah, for sure.
And I'll send you a few others too.
Yeah, send it to me.
I think you trust your credibility.
Yeah.
You know, Eric,
I
what
do.
about you? What's
All
your
right,
song?
so, well, speaking of things that were sent to me, so keeping with that theme, this one it's by a group which was new to me, but I have dove pretty deep into them in the last couple weeks. I've been listening to them a lot. Is Sons the Band, and that's Sons as in SONS, Sons the Band, and I was told I need to listen to them by the Lucas Crawford, and so I was checking them out, and it turns out he was right. I needed to listen to them, and so I have been diving into them. They've got some stuff, like they've done some stuff with like Tribal, which is part of, like the whole Maverick world and that sort of thing. But specifically the song that I have been listening to a lot is Only Ever Good is what it's called. And again, that's Sons the Band. And it's good stuff. It's really a pretty simple song, but it, just literally the lyrics are, you're only ever good, and you're only ever gonna be good.
Yeah.
And
That's
I don't know. I feel like that's we can't remind ourselves enough of that because it's, we all have, life and things come up, and there's stress, and there's negatives, and there's tough stuff that you have to deal with, and to just be reminded that God, you're only ever good. Like there's all this other stuff, but like you are only ever good. And so, I really enjoyed that one. I've joined a lot of their other music as well, but that specific one, Only Ever Good, Sons the Band. You should check that out and check them out. So there you go. All right. Well, that's been your song spotlight. You should check out those songs. And yeah, that's really all we got to say there. So let's get to some questions. Brooke, this is where I'm going to hand it over to you. So, Jimmy, on these, before we get into the meat, the nitty gritty, we like to have a little bit of fun and ask some questions that kind of lead us to that. So, Brooke, why don't you give the first one?
Sure. Okay. Jimmy, I believe the first question is, what is something that people may not know about you?
Well, they definitely know I love Mexican, and that's one of the reasons why I love to come on this podcast.
We do.
I don't know actually how we haven't talked about that yet, because Jimmy is probably one of the few people that I would say is on the same love of Mexican food. Him and his wife, every like Friday.
Every Friday. Is that right?
Sure. Typically every Friday night, or if we're off on that Friday, we'll go for a very late lunch to... Well, I guess we could say that.
Oh,
Agave
you can.
Mexican restaurant.
Yep, you guys are agave people.
I forget. I'm not on 90.9 Divine, which we can't mention things like that. Or we can. We just can't say, "Hey, go there."
Yeah, sure. Well, you can say that here.
Yeah. No, we love Mexican food, but everybody knows that. So, and I do enjoy in the past you guys talking about your Mexican fixes. And quick funny story: I was in Kid Depot last month. And I started out in Kid Depot on the second Friday night of every month because they needed help at the time, and I thought, well, why not? I mean, Jennifer's here hosting online, so I'll just help out with Kid Depot. Well, they happened to put me in the kindergarten, first, and second graders, and Blakely is in there, and I just made the comment about, hey, I go to Agave every Friday night after church typically, and her eyes lit up, and I mentioned something about chips and cheese dip, and she looked at me. She goes, "You're speaking my language, dude." And then later that night, we saw the Light Days at Agave. So.
Yep.
She came out of class that night, and she's like, they usually on Friday nights they've gotten into they would like to go to Showdown, but she came out of class and she goes, "Please, can we go to?" Which she still, from as a kid, she is always called Agave Avocado. She's just like, that's what she's like. Can we go to Avocado? I'm like, sure, why not? But yes, Blakely is your standard white American female. She likes chips and cheese dip, and she'll eat some rice with cheese in that, and that is So
we had Lenny. She had a birthday in August, and we brought her and some of her girlfriends to wherever they wanted to eat, and of course it was El Ranch for Lenny, and Blakely came, of course, and Blakely was sitting next to Hayden at the table, and the guy forgot to bring out the cheese dip, and she just kept looking at Hayden, and you could tell she was going to be like, is he going to have to ask him, or will I have to ask him? Because either way, I'm getting my cheese dip. And I just loved watching that whole thing play out. And I'm pretty sure she like nudged Hayden, like even went forward enough to just be like, hey, can you get my cheese dip, please?
That's funny.
It was hilarious. Yeah. So she fits right in.
That's so funny. But one thing that most people may not know about me, I thought about that, and it's like, gosh, I've been here for 18 years. I have a radio show. I talk about a lot of stuff on my radio show, but I know Eric doesn't listen to radio. No, I'm just teasing.
I can't wait for us to dig into this even more. Let's put a pin in that conversation. We'll come back to it.
Well, it's already been brought up that I have a connection to the band Camino. Yeah. Okay, with the mother of the drummer was a friend of mine. We're Facebook friends, and we used to always do stuff together when we all lived in Memphis. But I have a connection to Skillet, the rock band Skillet. John Cooper, the lead singer of Skillet, was in a band in Memphis, Tennessee in 1992 and 93, while I was in a band with a guitar player who ended up getting with John, and they formed Skillet.
That's awesome.
So I used to know Skillet before Skillet was Skillet.
Nice. Yeah.
And so I know some people do know about that, but I would probably say
I don't know. Most people probably don't.
Well, and I try not to. I mean, I don't like to talk about stuff like that because it's just like, it's cool, but I don't see them as Skillet. I say, hey, that's my old buddy John from back in the day when we were early 20. He was in 1993. He was still a senior in high school and playing trombone in the high school band. And then he was late to a gig because he was marching on the football field. And they had awesome. And his band at that time, they were called Seraph. They had to start without him. So
that is so funny.
So yeah, that's probably one thing that people may not know about me is that I have a connection to John Cooper and Skillet.
What's a fun fact?
Cool. That is a fun fact.
I really enjoyed that.
So
good. Well, I think this is when we can talk about it. Let's unpin this here for this next question. Question number 2, Jimmy, we're going to talk about your favorite and your least favorite song to lead. And this is typically the perfect opportunity for us to either diss or applaud a radio song. So let's just dive into it. So Jimmy, what is your favorite and least favorite song to lead, whether it be on the drums or whether it be singing or however it is you see fit there?
Well, with playing the drums, you can kind of fake it a little bit. And maybe not do a particular role or anything, but when you're singing and it's in a particular key and it's a Friday night or an 11 o'clock service and maybe a 9:15 service, if you get a song that, hey, I really think you should lead out on this song, it's like, okay, it's not really in my wheelhouse, but, and it's not so much what we're doing now. This was more so back in what I like to call John's tenure.
That's what he calls it too.
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
But for the sake of the call.
Yeah.
Because I'm laying down my life. And it's like,
yeah.
It's so low. And it's like, I don't want to bring it up to the higher octave because then it wouldn't sound right. And so I would say, a lot of them are from John's tenure, not necessarily. And I don't want to say from the new tenure. And the thing is, I don't sing as often as I did back then because I am more involved with Fusion and Ignite and Kid Depot, which I love doing that. But probably For Sake of the Call is my least favorite song to lead out singing wise. Drumming wise is just. one of the things that I have struggled with in my advancing age is just being able to learn the songs quicker. That's one of the things that I have discovered as I'm getting older is my brain doesn't absorb as quickly as it used to, and it takes me longer to learn things, and that's what's been difficult. When we first started doing I Thank God, I mean, because it's it's like, oh man. But I mean,
you're sweating at the end of it.
Man, am I ever?
Yeah, it's a workout.
Kurt always has his fan back there, you know.
Thank you for the fan.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just I'm so happy that we have all these other new drummers that are drumming. I mean, because for a spell, a long time ago, I was the only drummer here.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's just I found out somebody else just like within the past week or two is selling a drum set on Facebook, and I'm like, what? He plays drums. He needs to be playing in church because it's like the more we have, that's just the more praise we can give. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the newer songs on drums, it's just, well, even just singing it, it's just, again, it's my brain being older, and it's just more difficult to learn the songs. And I find that I learn them better when we're actually rehearsing them than if I'm listening to them throughout the week. I don't know why that is, but
I'm the same way. Like I do better if I run through it just like when we're here on a Wednesday than if I have a new song that I'm not familiar with and I like listen to it 40 times before we meet on Wednesday. I just for whatever reason, I've always thought like I'm weird for that. So thank you for I mean, we might be, but at least I'm not alone in it, you know.
Yeah, we're probably weird.
Sure. Well, Jimmy, what about your favorite ones like to sing and to play?
Most of them.
Yeah.
I love worship music.
Yeah, it would be so hard to pick.
I love worship music. I'd probably say for like recently what we've been doing within the past couple of years, and we weren't doing it as much in Big Church as we were in Fusion, but Run to the Father, and the other one is You're Bigger Than I Thought You Were.
Those are both solid Eric songs too.
And see, that's why I think I've got such a connection with Eric and his style and what he's doing and that I'm on board with. I mean, and we can get into this a little bit later, but I mean, there's been a lot of changes. And it's just like, you know what? I can either gripe and complain or I can hop on board with it and submit to the leadership of whatever ministry I'm in because it's not about me.
Oh, I love that.
It's not about me.
Yeah.
It's never about me.
Those are two well-written songs.
Yes.
Yeah. And
the other one is, I'm sorry, it's an elevation song. Not for a minute was I forsaken.
Here Again.
Here Again. Thank you. Yeah.
That's a really
That's
good
probably
song
my ultimate favorite.
The bridge of that song is, I don't know. That's one of those like if I don't know how you can sing those lyrics and it not do something.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yes.
I
agree.
If I don't know how that works. So yeah, I mean they are just.
But I also love that you're just like a fan of Eric, but also I want to talk about why you're not a fan of Eric, and that is that he's not a fan of radio songs. I'm not going to drop it because it needs to be addressed. This has been so funny because even before podcast time, Eric and I would always like refer to certain songs as radio songs. And I don't even know, and you more so in a way of like, radio songs, you know. Well, and I will defend Eric because there are some songs on the radio that are good radio songs, but it's like that whether it be like a sound or like cheesy lyrics or just kind of like almost like what feels like a surface level kind of thing. And you know, Eric's just such a deep, complex guy that like he just can't hang with that.
I can't burn a candle and listen to whatever.
What was it that you said?
You don't burn candles and listen to Colton Dixon, right?
Yeah, but like, no. What was your least favorite song? What was it? I'm a friend of God.
Yeah, I'm a friend of God. That's a whole nother. That one is.
I wouldn't even say that's fully a radio song. No, it's fine. But
here, let me just.
It's a radio song.
Do you need to defend yourself?
No, it's a radio song because Phillips Craig did it, and we wore it out. So.
I'll
admit that.
There you go.
No, it's really I don't know. Part of it is just my natural, because like when I know that other people like
You're
something,
like, then I hate
my
it.
natural inclination is to just immediately jump on the opposite side.
Sure.
And so,
I can
mean,
relate to that.
Part of it is my own, just like, I've put this out there and now I will own it.
Yes.
And so whether I, you know what I mean, like in my car, I listen to WBGL all the time. No, I'm just kidding. I don't. But yeah, no, I don't know. Yeah, it's just, because they'll even take like some worship songs and they condense them down and they put them, they'll put them on there. So it's not like we're not doing, like, we do radio songs.
Yep.
But I don't know. There's just something about them that the whole CCM portion of that, it's just, the music is written differently. It's I think it's oftentimes, this is just my opinion. And Jimmy,
I'm enjoying this.
You
watching Jimmy
more,
over
so
here, watching you.
I would value your. I feel like
I'm just letting him get his piece out. So
I feel like the way that most of the time, because there's a template and they're writing to a template most of the time, and I get it. Like that's what gets you. That's what your record label wants, and whatever. But I just feel like there's in some of these other, like, not on the radio, more, I guess, maybe movements that come from churches based on just artists, like, music that is coming from churches. I feel like it's written more for the church, and there's just a deeper meaning to that. Not that they're not getting across some of that in the radio stuff, but I feel like when music comes from the church, and again, the church is not a bit like the people, those artists, they're the church as well. But
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, when it comes from people that are leading in a church, I just feel like there's a different level of honesty and depth there, and maybe meaning, because I know that they're writing it. If we were to write a song, when we have written songs, it's something that we want to give to our congregation.
Yeah.
And so I know that that's where they're coming from.
Yeah.
So that's my thing.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think it's really fun to give you a hard time, especially when we have the Jimmy Bass, the radio host, on the podcast. I think we need to talk about it.
But you should listen to The Vine.
You should listen to The Vine. You should listen to WGL. Y'all do what you want to do.
Specifically 2 to 6, Monday through Friday. But
awesome.
to kind of follow up and go along with what Eric is saying, I get where he's coming from. And to me, there's two different types of Christian music. There's the music that you're talking about that's coming out of the churches. And to me, that's music that is vertical. The Colton Dixons and for King and Countries and the the old Michael W. Smith. Michael's been doing a lot of worship stuff here recently. But stuff like that, the Jordan Felizes, a lot of them that's more horizontal. It's like, here we're gonna sing about God and what God can do for you and how He can do this. Whereas the stuff coming from out of the churches, like Elevation and Maverick City Music, and even Phil Wickham stuff and Chris Tomlin stuff, the Passion Movement, Christian Stanfill, Kerry Jobe, Cody Carnes, all that's more, to me, more vertical, and it's like, hey, we're worshiping God. And I personally think ministry happens a lot more in the vertical than it does just singing about God, singing a song about God. And it has its place. It does.
Absolutely.
It does have its place. But I will say this about radio, and I'm not knocking radio, because I do believe that in the mission, and I'm not trying to make this about the Vine, because it's not about the Vine. It's about any Christian radio station. And I truly believe, and I believe it with WBGL. Yeah. I believe it with K-Love, which is, national. Huge, Air One, Way FM. I've got a buddy that I used to work with in Paducah that is a Way FM station manager down in Florida. And, it's about the ministry. The mission of the Vine is to encourage the body of believers and to point people to Jesus and to tell people about Jesus. And that's what it's about. But if you listen on Sunday mornings on the Vine, we're playing the same stuff that we're playing in our worship services. It's not the radio mixes. Yeah. We're playing. It's positive praise is what we call it. And the guy that hosts it, Justin Popes, he is out of the Cape Church down in Cape Girardeau, and he actually pastors the plant that they did in Sikeston, Missouri.
Awesome.
And he's our station manager, and he hosts it, and he's a worshiper. He
That's
loves the
awesome.
Maverick City. He loves the Elevation. He loves Hillsong, Vineyard.
Right.
I mean, he loves it all, and it's like he and I connect
Yeah.
very well. And so I would just encourage people, even on Sunday mornings before you come to church, turn on the Vine and listen and worship, because not only does it start your day off on a positive note, but it prepares your heart for worship
That's
when you
it.
get to your
Come on,
to your
Jimmy.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. That's a whole other podcast too. I'll preach about that later. I'm really glad we got to talk about this. I feel better. What about you guys?
Yeah,
You're the one that brought the whole radio thing.
Hey,
up, so.
I'm just really wanted to put Eric on the spot. It's fun for me. So moving on to number 3, Jimmy, this is probably my favorite question, and I feel like I say that every time I get to ask this question. But it is, what's one dream, goal, or thing you wish to accomplish one day?
Man, I thought about that last night and just a little bit this morning. There's so many different things that I would like to do, that I want to do. I mean, I want to go to Hawaii. I feel like I will get an opportunity to do that based on the work that I do with Jennifer at Provision Eye Care, because a lot of times they have continuing educations.
Yeah.
And it's
look
like,
and find the right one.
maybe there's a CE in Hawaii that we can go to sometime. I really
go.
love to do that, but I guess probably a dream of mine. A lot of people know this. A lot of people may not know this. I am a huge fan of Stryper. Stryper is a rock band. They don't claim to be a Christian rock band, but they are a rock band from the 80s. And they're still relevant now. They're still putting out new music now. And it's so good. But they pride themselves on being a light in a dark place. They don't play in churches. They play in bars. They play in clubs. And, I mean, they're coming out and they are singing songs about Jesus. And I've been to shows where they've played in a youth club, but I've also been to shows where they've played in a bar. And there's half the crowd is drunk because they're drinking. But yet, Jesus is still being preached to them in the music. So I'd say probably a dream of mine would either be to play drums with Stryper or just get to sing harmony with Michael Sweet.
Ooh, there you go.
I would love to do that.
That's
And
cool.
and I'll share this podcast when it's over with, and I will tag Stryper and I will tag Michael
Gotta
Sweet
make
in
that
this,
happen.
and
See what they say.
see if it can happen.
Come on.
I mean,
then ask
it
them
would.
how they feel about radio songs while you're at it.
So.
We gotta start a movement here. We have got that would
That'd
be
be
cool.
so fun.
That would be really cool.
I could see you doing it.
So I love all genres of music, but I'm a rock and roller at heart.
You are. You
So,
really are.
Cool.
Yeah.
I miss my mullet. Maybe that's something else somebody didn't know about me.
That's what you should have said in question 1.
Now we need pictures as well.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I've got them on Facebook. I
Send
do.
them our way, Jimmy Bass.
All right,
Well,
Brooke, ask the big
I was going to
question.
say, here we go. It is finally time. So, Jimmy Bass, it's a pleasure to ask you, what's your story?
Sorry, I had to get a drink of my great coffee that we got from the Pioneer Woman Mercantile in Pawhuska, Oklahoma. Well, what's my story? Well, it's 52 years of my life. The first thing that I would want to say is, first and foremost, is I am a Christian. I'm a born-again believer of Jesus Christ. Now, I didn't have some big come-to-Jesus moment. I was not struggling with an addiction. I was just realized that I was a sinner and I needed to be saved. And the only person that could do that was Jesus. So I grew up, born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. I grew up going to a very strict private Baptist school that was also a church, where it was very, of course, this was back in the 70s and the early 80s, and it was, guys had to have short hair, girls could not wear pants or shorts, they had to wear dresses, it was culottes. Even when they played sports, they were wearing culottes. That's what they called them. And it was, if you went to go see a Disney movie, you were going to hell. If you listened to rock and roll, pop music, you were going to hell. It was almost,
intense.
it was intense, and it was almost cult-like. But I look back on it now. Hindsight's always 20/20. I look back and thought, I thank God that I had, because that was the beginning of the foundation. I mean, because even with all that, I still got taught the Bible. I had to learn catechisms. I had to learn the Bible. Bible was a specific subject that we had to pass in order to go to the next grade. So I went to that school from kindergarten to 8th grade.
Wow.
And then I got pulled out of that, and boom, here, go to a public school. Huge eye-opener for me. But it wasn't, of course, during that time that I was at that school, and it was funny because years ago, when Drew and Sue Ellen Grounds were here, Drew's our former worship pastor, Sue Ellen went to the same type of school in Florida where she was from, and we used to giggle and talk about and joke about how, okay, amongst our friends, we always had chapel every day. And it's like, oh, who's going to be the one that's going to raise their hand to accept Jesus so we can all go to lunch and not be late for lunch? And that's how it was. It's like, and we want every head bowed, every eye closed, and there's somebody here that needs to repent or they need to accept Jesus. And I can't tell you how many times I raised my hand and said the sinner's prayer. But it wasn't until, fast forward into my teenage years, I was going to a public school system for a couple of years. Then I went back to a private school that I graduated from. Teenage years, I rebelled. I did the typical teenage stuff. I was trying to drink. I smoked a little bit. I was trying to have sex. I mean, that's just what was in the 80s. That's what you tried to do. Some people were very successful at it. Some people weren't. But I realized right after during all that time, I was attending a Methodist church and involved with the youth group, and I figured out I needed more. And the group that I was at in this Methodist church, I had people that were 4 or 5 years older than me, or they were 4 or 5 years younger than me. I had nobody there that was my age, and I just felt like I needed to be with people that were more around my age. So I left there and started going to the church that my mom and my grandma had been going to when she was a kid growing up. And it was basically an independent non-denom church, just like Central. And started going there and got connected with there. That's when I started playing in the band. I picked the sticks up one day and started playing the drums. I mean, it was totally a gift from God. I'd never had a lesson a day in my life. I started out as being the sound guy for this band. Because I knew sound. I had started in high school. I started messing with sound systems, and that's when I got into DJing. I always knew that I wanted to be a DJ when I grew up. And side note, I have not grown up yet. If you see me in Kid Depot, you'll know that. But I always knew I wanted to be a DJ of some sort. I wanted to be involved with music, whether that was DJing or I used to dream about, hey, it'd be cool if I was a rock singer and this and that. But I was involved with this band, and while I was involved with this band, we did a lot of gigs with different other bands in the Memphis area. And then it wasn't until the band kicked me out. They decided that I wasn't good enough for them, or so I thought. That really wasn't the case. But I held a lot of bitterness with that for several years with one of the guys, but I have since contacted him, and we have made up, so to speak. And I mean, we still speak from time to time, and he owns a big production company down in Memphis, kind of like what Chris Parton does with Midwest, but he does it down in Memphis. But I went to, of all concerts, I went to a Carmen concert.
Ah, Carmen.
Carmen. And I know a lot of people do not like Carmen. Brian Fuller at the Vine, he does not like Carmen at all. But I went to a Carmen concert, and it was at that night that he put out a call to accept Christ. And I really feel like it was at that point that I truly became a Christian. When I realized that, hey, I've been living in sin. I really am not a Christian. And I had been sprinkled in the Methodist Church as my baptism, but I really didn't feel like that was that was a true baptism. Not that I'm saying that sprinkling is not a true baptism, and it's just if that's for somebody else, that's their thing. But I felt like I needed to be immersed. So a couple of months later, I was immersed, and from that point on, I got involved in church, at my church in Memphis, playing drums, more so playing drums and singing, but playing drums. We had a pretty active drama ministry, and we did a lot of Easter dramas and Christmas dramas, and my best friend at the time, who was in the band that I was with, he decided to, it was at that point, 94. The band that I was in after I got kicked out or left, they decided that they wanted to go one direction musically, and my best friend Jamie wanted to go in another direction musically. So they formed another band. The other three formed another band, and Jamie kind of went and did solo stuff. Well, that didn't last long, and that's when the guitar player, Ken, he got with John Cooper, and that's when Skillet was formed in late 1994.
How old were you?
In 94, I was 24 years old.
24. Okay.
Yeah.
So
In
early
1994, I was 24 years old. And so I got heavily involved with serving in the church, played drums, did the drama, would go with my friend Jamie to run sound for his solo ministry, and he had written some really good songs. Then in 1998, I felt like God was calling me to move away from Memphis. And it's like, no, this is where my home is. This is where my family is. This is where my church is. I love the church I was serving in. But I felt like spiritually God had me in the belly of a well because I was miserable for like 4 or 5 months. He said, you need to move to, of all places, Metropolis, Illinois. And I mean, I had a friend that used to go to church with me in Memphis that was living in Metropolis at the time, working in Paducah, Kentucky. And Jamie and I had come up to lead worship at a little conference that they were doing at the small church in Metropolis. Gosh, I forgot the name of the church now. But Community Christian Church in Metropolis, Illinois. Great small body of believers. So we led worship. He led worship there. I ran sound for him. And I thought, man, I really like this place. And then a couple of months later, I was asked to come back. I was asked to come back up and just hang out. So I went and hung out, and I just felt God in my spirit telling me, it's time for you to move to a new chapter of your life. I can't live what my mom wants me to live, or what my dad wants me to live, or who anybody else wanted me to live in Memphis. I had to do this on my own. I had to get away. And so, but I fought it for 4 or 5 months, and I was miserable. I finally said, okay, that's it. I'll do it. So I moved to Metropolis in 1998 and was working there for a couple of years, and then I had the opportunity to get involved with Christian radio in Paducah. Got involved with Christian radio there and started just doing radio there. I was playing drums and singing in the church, the small church that I was in there. Then I was working with a lady at WGCF in Paducah who had a cousin who has just recently had gone through some difficult things, and Jennifer will share a little bit about that on her podcast, but it was Jennifer's cousin that I worked with, and she introduced me to Jennifer, and I had met her at her mother's church in Elizabethtown, Illinois, which is right on the river. It's not extreme southern Illinois. Metropolis is extreme southern Illinois, but if you kind of go an hour up the river, you'll run into Elizabethtown, the Ohio River. So I met Jennifer. A week later, I was back at her mom's church thinking that she would be there because she always would come from Mount Vernon to her mom's church because she was single, and she goes, I have no life. And so I showed up they had a homecoming. I showed up after I was at my church, and I asked where Jennifer was, and her mom said she wasn't there. And so her mom gave me her number. I was like, oh, well, that's cool. So the next night, Monday night, I called her and said, hey, I was at your mom's church. And, well, let me back that up. I said, hey, is this Dr. Jennifer Kennedy? And she's like, yes. I said, well, I think I've got a problem with my eyes because I was at your mother's church and I swear I could not see you.
Dun, dun, dun.
Wow. Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you, Jennifer.
Jennifer will say, I should have ran from that point. At that point, I should have ran. So we met, that was in May of 2003. June of 2004, we were married. And I moved up here to Mount Vernon because she had already started proceedings to buy the practice, Provision Eye Care, from Dr. Perry. And I didn't feel like it was very fair of me to ask her to move down there. So I moved up here because nothing was holding me down there. And we get involved with Central, and I auditioned with Drew for playing drums and singing. And from that point on, it's just been a great season, and it's just been so cool to see. I've been here 18 years now, and I'm on my third worship pastor. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I'm not struggling with it now, but what I had been struggling with was not struggling with change, but what was going to happen. I couldn't foresee the future and what's going to happen. And I've always been of the mindset of, hey, church isn't about me. Church is about the Lord, and there's things that happen in the church and decisions that are made that I don't necessarily like, but I've got to remember it's not about me. And that was taught to me way back in the mid-'90s when I was at my church in Memphis, and there was just the elders at the church at that time decided to get rid of the acoustic drum set and go with an electronic drum set because acoustically it made better sense. Well, we had another drummer that just did not like that, and he just was grumbling and complaining about it and this and that. And my worship pastor said, look, this is the elders' decision. You either submit to it or you're not playing anymore. And I was like, yeah, for some reason that has always stuck with me, and that told me that, hey, this isn't about me. This is about a bigger thing. So I've seen, we went through the change from Drew to John, and that was a huge change. But I was also a lot younger then, and I was still kind of the main drummer, so to speak. And I enjoyed a lot of the songs that John was doing. We weren't doing as much of the churchy praise and worship songs. But then after, gosh, I think it was 2007, 2008 when John became worship pastor, up until 13 years he was our worship pastor, I believe. And so I kind of got in a comfort zone. And boom, we now transition. Of course, COVID didn't help out anything, but we transition into now Eric is our worship pastor, and I love the vision. I love seeing how the young adult ministry is starting to flourish, and seeing the excitement of the young the teenagers, even with our residents in chapel, and Nick and Pacey and Kyle, and seeing their excitement. And I remember what it was like when I was their age, and seeing or being so excited about the Lord and wanting to be passionate in my worship. And I specifically remember there was an old guy in the church that said, oh, you need to tone it down. We can't have none of that. And I was discouraged by that. It didn't stop me, but I was discouraged by that. So fast forward almost 30 years later, and here I am, I'm that old guy now. And it's like, okay, am I going to be that old guy? Because in the back of my mind, I hear that old guy from back 30 years ago telling me I need to tone it down and I can't be that passionate about it. And it's like, no, I see their excitement. I've been there. I know what it's like. And I'm not going to be that guy that tells them that they need to tone it down, because I remember what it was like. And so the whole thing of, I may not like the direction we're going, but it's not about me. And it's not that I don't like the direction. I love the direction we're going. I struggled with more so of where am I going to fit in? How am I going to fit in? Because now we've got younger people that are now in their mid to late 20s, early 30s that have the same gifts that I do, and they need to be able to use them and have that outlet to be able to worship God, because worshiping God to me, it isn't just standing in a church service and singing. I mean, worship God is using your gift, whether it's playing the drums or playing the guitar, playing the piano, whether it's playing a flute. I mean, whatever it is, whatever your gift is, you can use that to worship God. One of the things I love about Jennifer is she's got a little sign on her door that goes out of our office, because we share an office, and it says, "Make this next patient, an act of worship." And that's always, I see that every day, because she still has it there. And it's like, that tells me that whatever your gift is, whatever you're called to do, it needs to be worship to God. And so for about a year, I struggled with where do I fit in? And it's, how am I going to fit in? And it meant the world to me back at Christmas time when we did our Christmas worship services, and you passed out thank you notes to everybody when we had that little time of, hey, turn to your neighbor and tell them Merry Christmas and what you think and this and that. And I really appreciated what you said in the thank you note to me, because it solidified to me that, hey, I am still wanted, not only just wanted in this ministry, but that I still have something to offer in the form of my gift to come alongside you as the leader and you as the co-leader of this ministry to continue moving our congregation in worship each and every Sunday. So, I mean, that's my story. And I mean, there's so many other elements in my timeline in my life that we could kind of delve deeper into, but I felt like that's not what you were really wanting. You were just kind of wanting a general synopsis.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really cool because the one of the main things about you to me that I've always seen and respected so much was not only the consistency that you bring to every ministry you're plugged into, but like the longevity both you and Jen have served. And I think and that kind of ties into this, a second point I'm going to talk about, but like when you do it well, you do it humbly, you do it to the best of your ability, and that whether that is with kids in kindergarten, first or second grade, whether that's with middle school kids, which is like where I feel like you strive in an area you really love, and an area that most people are afraid to even try to serve in. I can speak from firsthand experience how you've invested and poured into me when I was a high school student, and I mean, we've had a handshake since I've been like 14, we
haven't done that in a while.
Yeah. Like it's just like that's just your heart. And I think with your story, there's just, that has always been your heart. And it's always been a gift that is of how God made you and made you to feel and understand. And like you are the type of person who was created to invest, and you're loyal. And, then moving into like you talking about this transition of our church, which I know we reference to a lot, but it is a big deal. And, you have people in the CA ministry, like the Jimmies, like the Kevins, like all, and I'm like, there is so much to be valued and so much to be like protected over the people who've paved the way for us.
Right.
I mean, yes, we, are younger, and yes, there are things that we like that might be new or that might whatever, but like we have to respect like those who are wise and those who have gone before us. And that's easy for Eric and I to do. Right. And I know even like the younger people who are on our team who lead worship and all of that, like that's just it. Like there's such a value and a love and an appreciation for the generation of people who have made this ministry because of their willingness and their love for God, what it is. And you have, like you talked about the 3 pastors in this position. You have Drew, you have John, you have Eric. And I think just the coolest thing about that is every transition and every season was always a good one. And it was never like, there was never like I guess you said, change is hard, and you're like, I can't always see what's next, because of course you're like, why? There's nothing wrong with what we're doing. It's going well. It's good.
Yeah.
Like, will it change in a negative way with it, whatever. And it's like, I'm sure when Drew left, that's what people thought when John took over. And it's like when, there was peace with that, because both Drew and John were obedient in the call of their lives.
Absolutely.
When you have this season with John and Eric, you have both John and Eric being obedient to the call of their lives. And it's like, vision can be hard, sure, but the Lord has vision for us when we don't. And He's so trustworthy. And so through like the longevity that you've gotten to see of the way that this ministry has changed and grown and all of that, I think it's just so cool. Like your perspective of it has to be just like, oh, it's just so valuable. Like, I mean, it's so special because it's perspective I don't have, you know what I mean? And I'm in a position where I'm making calls, you know what I mean? And it's like I would be a fool to not value the Jimmys and the Toms and the Steves and the Kevins and the Rons and like all these people like who just have only ever poured in so much and have faithfully seen this ministry grow from season to season to season to season. And it's just so special. So I just wanted to say, thank you, because you are obviously, and I mean, Eric tells you all the time too, like, but you are such a vital piece. You and Jen both, not only to our ministry, but so many other ministries in this church, and an example to not only adults in our congregation, but to our kids, and so I just think your involvement,
I love our kids.
You do, and you love them well, and so it's just super cool that we get to have you and both you and Jen just so alive and what you're doing and thriving in the ministries you're part of so faithfully, so consistently. So it's just super cool. But we just love you, and I'm excited for people to hear this episode. They see you serve in all those places, so it's gonna be really cool for them to like hear your heart even more. So
and that's
cool.
That's one of the things. Again, I mean, you were sitting there talking about, you mentioned something, new things. I mean, we always hear that verse from Isaiah, says from the Lord prophesying to Isaiah, "See, I am doing a new thing.
Yeah.
Do you not perceive it?" And I think we always hear that with just the beginning of the year. Hey, it's a new year. God's doing something new. But I mean, God's doing something new in August and September.
Yeah.
And it's just being able to see that, hey, there is something new and we need to perceive it. And of course, I'm a huge thing. I hate. I don't want to say I hate, but
I saw you breathe, and I was like,
We're
he's
gonna
about to take it back.
We're going to have to bleep that out now.
For the first time we're ever going to have to edit an episode.
I'm not a fan of people that gripe and complain.
Yeah, that's hard.
And it's very hard. It's very hard. And I find myself griping and complaining about people that gripe and complain. And I mean, because it's just, I mean, I think if we turn our gripes and complaints into worship, then I think God can work more within us. I saw a post on social media the other day, and I thought it was really good. It's from a lady that is one of our underwriters at the Vine. She goes to Orchardville Church with Rick Hayes. And she had said, there are basically two types of people in the world, complainers and worshipers, and there isn't much circumstantial differences between the two. Complainers will always find something to complain about. Worshipers will always find something to praise God about. Wow. They simply have different default settings.
Wow.
And I thought that's
another word. Here we go.
It's like that's what I want to do. Like you in this podcast every time. Let's be people that bring the praise. No matter what, it doesn't have to be on Sunday mornings or Friday nights. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, that's so true. So good.
Jimmy, I've got a couple questions for you.
Okay.
Follow up just from hearing your story and things that I think that you can maybe encourage and give some valuable insight into those who listen. As we've referenced, as you've referenced, I mean, you serve in, it would be easier to name the ministries you don't serve in at Central than the ones that you do. But why is, I guess, two-parter. Why is serving so important to you? Because clearly it is, because you do it and you step into so many areas. But why do you feel serving is so important to you, and why should other people start serving if they're not, or look for more for more opportunities? Because I think sometimes we can be serving and we think like, oh, we're doing our part, and maybe we are, but maybe there's opportunities that we could even take another step.
Yeah. for me, the reason that I do it is, I mean, number one, we're called to do it, obviously. Yeah. I mean, we're to serve one another. Jesus spoke about it a lot when he was, and he spoke about it a lot to his disciples. But I also feel that's where community starts. I mean, we can sit here and say, hey, we need to be in community, we need to be in community, we need to be in community. But if you're not serving somebody in that aspect, whether that's changing a diaper, or that's hanging out with the kindergarten, first and second graders, and spending most of the time telling them to be quiet so we can get through the lesson, or if it's hanging out with the middle schoolers and, hey, put your phone down so we can talk about this, or it's hanging out with the high schoolers and going to watch their tennis matches or whatever, or it's serving with the worship ministry and just being able to be there for somebody to listen to what they're going through and pray for them, or if it's doing special needs prom and using, thankfully, the gift that God gave me with music and being able to, what I like to say, bring the party. Because I love to have fun. I love to have a good time. And, I mean, we can have a good time in the Lord, but I think it all goes back to community. And it's like, it's establishing relationships with people, whether it's Blakely in first grade, or Bryce, who calls me Jimmy Grinch.
Yeah.
Because he saw me wear a Grinch shirt back at Christmas time. Or even Chapel Davis, who I've enjoyed watching grow so much in his spiritual walk from when he was in Fusion to now being a resident here and studying to be some type of servant in some type of in a pastoral role, whatever it is he wants to do. So, but yeah, I think it's just all about community, and I would just encourage somebody to, not that I don't mean this in a harsh way, but just get over yourself and just do it. I mean, I enjoyed years ago Jennifer being in the choir, because Jennifer sang in choir, and I'll never forget. One Sunday afternoon, we were sitting at home. It was after church. And I just happened to have been on Facebook on my laptop, and I'm scrolling, and then all of a sudden I see this sponsored ad from a church in Hawaii. And they said, hey, watch our church service. It's kind of like what we do when we promote our service. They were having church then because it's in Hawaii. So I clicked on the link and I'm looking at it, and boom, their live stream popped up. And I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. I like this. Well, then there was a chat box. And so I put it in there, and it's like there was an actual service host there and this and that. And I was like, hey, Jennifer, check this out. Look at this. And blah, blah, blah. They were saying, hey, I'm from Mount Vernon, Illinois. And hey, we're glad you're with us and this and that. And I think that right there birthed what Jennifer transitioned into from being in choir to now being our online service host.
Yeah. And, and even like you're talking about it being community, Jen's heart with doing what she's doing as service host, every single service is doing just that. It's building and shaping community for people who aren't and cannot be, physically in the building. And I think that's so important to make, truly, like the Lord uses Jennifer in that role in that way to build community and build relationships with people that we would not have in any other way, and that they may not feel like they're part of any other church home, but because of the love that Jen has for a stranger across the screen, like they can feel like they have a home at Central, which is just so cool.
It really is.
I've always loved and appreciated, because I think a lot of people could be like, who's really on the other side of that screen, or what do they really care? One thing I've always loved is in her setup that she has in the booth, she's got this little notebook that she keeps she handwrites down every prayer request that she receives every weekend, and then kind of depending on what it is, but most weekends she'll shoot me, John, Jared, whoever, a text and say, hey, here's just a couple things that I think you guys would want to be in prayer about, and so I just always, because again, somebody who doesn't have the capability to be in that moment or in that thing, that we have somebody that not only cares enough to just write them down, but it's like, so I mean, if you're somebody that watches online, like you can know that Jennifer is not only praying for those things and keeping track of them, because and not only that, but there'll be times like she'll reference back, and she'll be like, hey, here a couple weeks ago, so-and-so, asked us to pray for this. Here's an update.
Right.
Well, there was
here's what
a testimony, because wasn't it like a man and his son, or something like that? And we were praying, and he had cancer. There was something, and like he came back online and was then telling Jennifer an update, and that I don't know whether it like.
It was several months later, but it was clear.
He came back,
clear.
and it was just, he was healed, and it was super awesome. And so, like, I mean, how cool is that? And we would have never been able to celebrate that testimony, like, if it would not have been for, like, Jennifer being willing to, like, hey, be here and have that role, and then them feeling comfortable enough with her to share something so transparent and vulnerable that they're walking, like, and super cool.
And the other thing that I like about what she does is she could just as very easily do that back in the control room.
Yeah.
And be back there with them and hearing all that's going on. No, she wants to be in the middle and be there and being able to witness the Spirit moving in the room, and she can translate that and connect that to the people that are on the other side of the computer screen.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah, so for more on Jen, you should listen to the Central
We
Weekly
love her.
podcast, because she'll be on there as well.
She won't be as long as ours.
No, that's okay.
one ever is.
Nobody ever is as long as ours, and that's okay.
We know our fans are real fans.
We own
really.
it, and we own it, and we just don't care. Yeah,
We are who we are.
But
come on.
the last thing I want to, because I think this is really important, and something that honestly we don't talk enough about in the church, and it's something that. Not without difficulty, and not without, at times, like you said, times where you're wondering, where do I fit in? But, I know for me, when I was the 19-year-old kid that was coming in, and, we had guys like you and Mike Young and Danny Kaufman and Mike Horn, there are all these guys that have been here for forever, and like had, we're just great, and then here comes like me as this 19-year-old kid, getting thrown into the mix with all these guys that have been doing it for forever. And I remember how it could have been really easy, and I'm sure you guys thought it at times, but it could have been really easy to be like, what is this punk kid doing? Why is he?
Honestly, we did.
Yeah, and I'm sure you did, and I'm sure a lot of times I deserved it.
He
you know
deserved
what I mean? But despite what you might have thought, like you guys, instead of kind of discouraging me or, trying to make me not want to do it so that you guys could continue to do what you had been doing, like it was, you guys would encourage me, and, I learned a lot from you guys, and that was a shaping time for me, in, where I'm at now. And so I think about, just what would you say as somebody now, even, gosh, that's what
that makes me so emotional to
13,
think about.
Yeah, I mean, 13, 14 years later now.
So huge.
Like I said, we're 14 more years down the road.
Yeah.
What would you encourage people that maybe they are that, they are the, we won't say old, we'll say seasoned person on their team.
Seasoned and wise.
You can say old to me. It doesn't offend me.
But, but there are young, there are. And
right.
like you've referenced here, I mean, we've, luckily Central has, always been blessed to have. And I think that a lot of that goes to how we operate our kids' ministries and our middle school ministries and our high school ministries, that we're training up worshipers from, whether you're a kindergartner or whether you're 18. But what would you say to somebody, I guess, as encouragement, who's maybe sitting in your seat and wondering where they fit in and wondering what's next? I've got these young people coming in, and I don't know that I totally like everything, and I don't know that I am necessarily on board. But how would you encourage that person?
That's a very good question. Number one, I would say find somebody like a Steve Smith who's been involved with this church since before he was born, really. I love Steve Smith's heart. I love sitting under Steve and listening to his wisdom and his stories. Yeah. And I wish I just had an ounce of his wisdom, because I love his heart. But I would say find somebody like that to be mentored by, or just kind of hang out with. But I think it just get involved, have community with somebody, and always know that it's not about you. Mm-hmm. It's never about you, no matter how much you want it to be. It is never about you. It is about God and nothing more. Yeah. That's it. Mm-hmm. And I know that's easier said than done, because there are times where it's been very difficult for me to make it about God and try to make it about me, because, I mean, our adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion trying to devour me. Mm-hmm. But again, I stand on that word from 1 Peter, stand firm in your faith, knowing that the same amounts of suffering that I'm going through, or the same things that I'm going through, other people and somewhere else in the world is struggling with the same thing that I am, but to take heart and to keep the faith and to be strong. Mm-hmm. And that's something else with just the state of the world, and it's like people get so depressed and discouraged with how things are in the world, and why aren't people coming to church more? COVID really messed things up, and this and that. But I keep going back to what Jesus said: take heart, be of good cheer, because I have overcome the world.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And I know I kind of got off on the main thing with that, but no, I would just really encourage people to get involved, no matter how uncomfortable it may be, and it'll be uncomfortable at first. I mean, it was uncomfortable for me volunteering with Kid Depot. Yeah. I mean, because I've always done middle school and high school. It's like, I don't know if I want to do grade schoolers. But, I mean, I see the people that I had been in community with now having kids, and it's like, I don't have kids of my own, but maybe this is why I'm here, to kind of be an uncle to these kids. Yeah. I mean, there was something that you didn't get to hear it because you didn't get to go CIY with us this past year, and I can't remember if you were in our leaders meeting with it or not. But one of the first couple of days, I believe, the guy, one of the leaders that was kind of the host for CIY for the high schoolers, he said, sometimes you have to give up your dream to fulfill your purpose.
Wow, that's a word.
It was a word to me, because it's like, okay, this is my purpose. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't supposed to be a dad, but I can be a spiritual father to a lot of kids.
I was going to say, and like, you say uncle, but this is just hits close to home for me for many reasons, but like you're exactly right. The spiritual father role that you have, like it is, I mean, Maria is truly my spiritual mother. And there are so many seasons of my life that I would not have been able to walk well and to walk with wisdom without her. And she is truly a mother to me. Right. And I have a birth mom. I mean, hey, I'm here, but like, I mean, I thank God for her. She's irreplaceable in who I am. And I mean, because she was my D group leader in high school, and then now I'm closer to 30 than I was then. And that's still the role she has over me and in my life. And I think for you, Jimmy, I think of my Bryce, I think of my Lenny, I think my Matthew, I think the baby that's coming. Like, you have a fatherly role for my children. And like, I think that's so powerful and so special. And, you laugh about Mexican food with Blakely, and I'm sure Bo will be in that conversation soon. But like, it means the world to Eric to have people in our church family who we know and trust and love to be father figures for the people who truly mean the most to us, you know? And they aren't ours either, they're gifts from God. And so anyways, your role in the youth ministry is just incredible. And we could talk about it forever and ever. But I even think of, you were talking about Steve, and he's also someone that we know, love, respect, and I mean, I love being under Steve's covering as an elder, and he's just awesome. And when he gives communion in the middle of our 9:15 services, when band and worship team, we have communion together, and Steve will be teaching. I remember the last one that he talked about, he was talking briefly on Paul and Timothy, and just the same concept, like how young Timothy was, and the almost like that, like fatherly, role, that spiritual role that Paul had in Timothy's life. And it's like without that spiritual figure, without that mentorship, that leadership, would Timothy be who he is? Like, would he have had the courage to do what he did? Like, because he was young, and so I just think, like you said, he through that, like, even just the encouragement for Timothy to go on with his purpose, because when we get over ourselves, it's what God has for us,
That's right.
and just, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've said, God, just help me want what you want for me.
Yeah.
Because there are many times that I don't,
Yeah,
and like,
I get it.
And I'm like, and I will say, like, I don't want to be bitter. Like, I don't want to be bitter towards you. I don't want to be, that person that carries this burden of this is what I want, or what I saw for myself and I didn't get, or I didn't have, or that didn't go my way. Like, I want to know and value and trust what you have for me is better than anything that I could have planned for myself. And not only that, I want to want that for myself more than anything else. We get to a place where, okay, the kingdom work you've called us to do, because this is only ever about you anyways.
Right.
I mean, it's a refining, humbling process we have to walk to really be like, okay, God, like, what do you have for me? What purpose do you have for me? Help me want what you want, because this is all only ever about you. And, leading worship, I just think, like, may they not see or hear me. May, like, all they only take back is how they encountered you through moments that we got the chance to lead, like we don't even need them to say our name. We don't even need them to think we sound good. I want people to reflect on worship when they leave on a Sunday or a Friday night of, like, how they experience God.
Exactly.
So it's cool.
Exactly.
I'm done talking. I'm sorry. I got on a thing.
No.
It's a 2-hour
It
podcast
happens.
by now. We're great.
It happens.
But no, it's but yeah. Seriously, Jimmy, we appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having me.
Jen.
Yeah, we love you.
We're
So
thankful for
grateful.
them. Jim and Jennifer, just the type of people are there. We're crashing their house here in a couple weeks
Yeah, we are.
to have our CA team night. They're gonna have a big bonfire out there, and so
Pray for good weather.
yeah, we want
Yes.
good weather, but it's gonna be just a real good time where our creative arts ministry can get together and hang out together and build that community that we've been talking about.
That's right.
And so we're very thankful to have people like Jimmy and Jennifer that not only do what they do, but let us crash their house. And like Jimmy said, he likes to bring the party, and we're going to bring a party to him. And so,
that gives Jennifer an opportunity to use her spiritual gift, because she has the spiritual gift of hospitality.
Yeah.
Yes,
So-
she does.
So we're thankful for that. We're thankful for, like I said, all the ways that you serve, the impact that you've had on myself, on Brooke, and just so many others in our church.
Countless
And
people.
it is seen and it's appreciated, and it's important to what God is doing, not only just in this place, but what people have gone out and done in that. So again, appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you
Hopefully,
very
like I said, if you know somebody that would be encouraged by this, please share this podcast with them today, because I think Jimmy has a long life to go. He's just a young 52, but
Yeah, he is.
the spiritual life that he has lived, that Jennifer has lived, is a testament to a heart of service and a humble heart that is behind that. And so hopefully you are encouraged by that. Maybe you're challenged by that. If you're listening to this, maybe this would be a spurring moment for you to get involved and to see what you can do. Maybe even if it's something you don't think that you would want to do, or even you don't want to do it. Maybe it would be an opportunity for you to step out of your comfort zone, challenge yourself, and step into maybe what God has for you. And so hopefully you will do that. We appreciate you listening. We always appreciate you leaving those ratings and reviews, sharing the podcast. It's always a blast. So yeah, Jimmy, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
For
you,
Jimmy, for Brooke, my name's Eric. This has been another Praise Podcast. Let's be people that in every day, in every way, bring the praise. We'll see you next time.